Welcome to Stories of Brisco and Bradshaw. I would be Bradshaw, joined as always by our Chickasaw native, our Chickasaw Hall of Famer, Oklahoma's favorite son, Mr. Gerald Brisco, and we have got a treat. We have been discussing one of, if not the greatest family in wrestling history. That is the Welch dynasty. I mean, we talk about the Welch dynasty. You got Roy Welch, Herb Welch, and you got this legends that is with us. The Tennessee stud, Mr. Ron Fuller, is joining us.
Yeah.
And we are joined by our Hall of Fame historian.
Wait a minute, you've already introduced me, Don.
Well, now, Mr. Brisco, to be fair, you are a Hall of Famer and you are a great historian.
Multiple times.
Yes, sir, but you are not a Hall of Fame historian. That honor belongs only to one person on this show, and that would be Mr. Tony Richards, because this year, at the George Tragos Luthez Hall of Fame, the Jim Melby Award winner is our favorite historian, Mr. Tony Richards. Tony, congratulations. You are a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Wow.
Good deal, Tony.
Oh my gosh.
Congratulations.
Goodness gracious. I'm so thrilled. I don't know what to say.
Well, you are a
I'll
Hall of
say
Fame
yes.
historian.
Well, thank you so much. I was just thinking in my mind, wait a minute, there's 3 Hall of Famers here and I ain't one of them.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, now there's 4 Hall of Famers.
Now there's
All right.
4 Hall of Famers. A well-deserved honor. Tony, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I was already looking forward to being there because the Welch family is going to get inducted, but this will be even more awesome. Thank
That's
you
right.
so much.
This show's taking it to the George Tragos Hall of Fame. The Welch family is going to be inducted, long overdue, and Tony Richards, our favorite historian, is going to be inducted, long overdue as well.
Oh, thank you guys so much. I
And
appreciate
then
that.
we got another Tennessee side in there with Double J Jeff Jarrett.
That's right.
Into our Hall of Fame, so.
We got a whole
And-
Tennessee Kentucky theme coming into the Tragos Luthez Hall of Fame.
Well, if Indiana can win a national championship, then a Kentuckian can get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You dang right. Well, Tony, congratulations.
Thank you guys. My heart's full of gratitude. I appreciate it so much.
Well, Tony, let's get rolling. We may be on our final episode. We're not sure, but we're talking about the Welch family. You know, one of my favorite characters in all of wrestling was Roy Welch, and so that was one of the reasons we wanted to do this. So, Tony, let's get rolling.
Well, we're on our final episode, our 10th episode of the Roy Welch family legacy, but we'll have more series coming up here on Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw, I'm sure. But we left off last time.
Well, Tony,
Ron,
you're not going to like a big shot us now that you're a Hall of Famer, are you?
No.
Oh, yeah. What do you call that? Gaslight us, John?
That's right.
No. We already got ideas for more big series coming up, so I'm going to be here. Ron, we left off last time talking about the blockbusting angle with Joe LeDuc and those guys getting the block busted over their head, and Joe had to go to the hospital. So I'll let you pick it up from here.
Yeah, he actually spent a week in the hospital after that.
And there's the thing right there.
There you go. Wow, I mean, that's
One of
a
the dumbest things I've
that's a
ever
tremendous photo there, man. And wow, it looks devastating, and it was devastating.
Rod, did you say there was a gimmick to that? Because, you know, that just take a center block and bust it over somebody's head, that's got to hurt. And I'm sure.
Well, they told me that they put the block into the oven, and they baked.
What kind of oven was it? It wasn't a microwave oven, was it?
No. Couldn't have got that block. That was on Joe's head in a microwave. No way in the world. And so they stuck it into an oven, and they heated it up, and I don't know how long they heated it, but it's supposed to make it a little bit easier to break. But anyway, after we did this, he went to the hospital. He came back. He was out. He was off for 2 months. I paid him just like he was working the entire time. And then he came back, and he was going to be first week back in against the Stomper. And so he showed up for TV, and he had talked to me earlier, and he asked me, he said, Ron, can I be on the personality profile? That was like a 5-minute segment in the middle of the TV show. And they usually didn't talk about wrestling. He talked about hobbies and stuff like that. But he said, "Can I be on the profile?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." I was glad to have him back. Glad to see he could come back. So he showed up on the set there and sat down with Les, and he brought with him, first time I'd ever seen this, he had brought with him an axe, a double-bladed axe. And he sat down there with Les, and Les was like, he looking at him, and I could see, I was in the control room with the director upstairs. And Les says, "What are you going to do with that axe?" And he says, "I'll show you." Joe was, "I'll show you."
Yeah.
And so they did the 5-minute profile, but they talked about the incident and everything that had happened to him, how long he'd been in the hospital, how bad, how difficult the recovery was, all that. And then he said he just took over the profile, the end of it. And I'm up there with the director, and he says, that's all I talk to you about now, Les. He says, I got to do something here for myself. And he says, I brought with me my axe today. And he held it up in front of the camera. And now he said, because of, back at home, when you have a lumberjack and you have a fight and you get embarrassed, especially if you get hurt like I got hurt. He says, I got to now make myself a blood oath. I'm going to make myself a blood oath that I'm going to take care of the Mongolian stomper. And so, he gets the axe and he puts his forearm up there, and he puts the axe on his forearm. And I get with the director. I say, "Well, get a close up. I don't know what's going to do. He's not talked to me about the axe." And then he goes, boy, he jams her in there. Blood starts running off of both sides of his arm. And he says, "I got my blood oath here that I'm going to kill a stomper," and oh gosh almighty, I screamed at the, "Get out of it, get out of it." Right? I mean, it was horrible. The Les was screaming, "Oh, no, no, no." I mean, it was like, so.
How was the TV station with blood back in those days?
Oh, we had blood on the wrestlers, but I mean, that was more more of a problem. I thought this would be a bigger problem than guys bleeding in the ring because they got blood. I mean, for him to just cut himself like that. He actually went to work in Memphis after he left us. He did it in Memphis too. Same type of thing with Lance Russell. Same type of reaction from Lance too.
Wow.
He's screaming, "No, get out of this, get out of this."
Ron, I'm curious. How did that lead into breaking the block? I mean, what was the build up to Joe saying I could break a block across my head?
Actually, the idea came from Stomper and Gorgeous George Jr. And they came, talked to me and my brother, talked to me and Rob. Rob was booking, and they said, we want to do this angle. We've talked to Joe. He wants to do it. And we were like, "No, heck, are you kidding, man? Somebody's going to get hurt. No, we can't do that." And then they finally just insisted. They just said, "We're going to do it. We're going to do it." And so it was their idea. And, Joe went along with them. And wow, after doing that at that angle, business was already great. We were already selling out. But after that angle, then Joe came back and he did the blood oath on TV and the blood running down both sides of his arm. I mean, wow, we never got to actually fans to had hundreds, sometimes thousands of fans in the little small spot show towns that had 3,000 seat gyms. There'd be 6,000 people show up in Harlan, Kentucky, wanting to see this, and see Joe the Duke and Stomper, So, and the territory was just like that for months. For months, those guys had worked program for probably 40 days in 1 year, and they worked another 40 days afterward with each other. Boy, and had some of the world bloodiest matches. Geez, man. And you could tell by looking at Joe's head, how bad business was, right? So it was quite a scene, the blood oath deal. And they had the same problem with it on Memphis TV that we had. I guess they probably would, I don't think Jared called me and asked me about it, but that Joe was nuts. He was crazy about some things.
There's a baby face on television doing this.
Yeah, he's a baby face. Yeah,
Yeah.
but pretty hard to imagine Joe as a baby face. When we
Yeah.
actually went down, and we're going to be talking about getting another territory started. When we went down there, we took him as a baby face there too. Same thing.
Took him as your lead baby face, huh?
Yeah, and what was really great about it is, we're going to go. I'm going to let you go ahead and take care of getting us to different areas here, Tony. And
Okay.
we're going to. This was 1977, basically. We just talked about where this angle went down in 1977.
Yeah, and you had a lot of world title matches in your career, Ron. By 1977, Harley Race is the world champion, and you guys do this big program in Knoxville where you had to go to the big building, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We were in the big building, and we set an all-time record in that big building. I think it's been 52 years or something like that since there. It's still the record. Still holds the record for the biggest crowd for a sports event. And we actually just did a Broadway that night. We did 60 minutes. And I talked earlier about wanting the fans to see wrestling, get to like to watch wrestling itself, rather than what John Kazana was giving them, Ron Wright and Whitey Caldwell, and just bloody matches and all that. So when we went an hour, I don't know that they'd ever seen an hour Broadway in that city. And last 5 minutes of the match, wow, it was unbelievable. I used to get those goosebumps. I had goosebumps for 5 minutes. I mean, that crowd, everybody in the building was standing up. So after that, we ran a series of matches. Wow, Harley loved it. Harley loved working there, and so he told me, he said, book us in a Texas death match. And I said, okay. So we'll put him on there. And I think the next time he came, he didn't tell me what the finish was going to be. He just said, yeah, I'm going to put you over. And so we worked the entire match. We got to the end of the match. Somehow he threw me out. Back in those days, tables weren't used. I'd never seen anybody use a table. Okay, and this was probably about it might have been early 1978. He threw me out on the announcer's table, and he switched. The bell was on the table. He threw it off into the crowd, and then he got me up on the table, stood up on the table with me, and he slammed me on the table. Both of us standing up on the table. I was like, what in the heck is this? And
I got to jump in there. Back in those days, you guys did gimmick tables either, right? I mean,
no, this table, there was no gimmick table.
Yeah.
Nobody had ever seen a table.
Nobody knew how to gimmick a table back in those days.
At that point, yeah, no, it wasn't a gimmick. And he slammed me on the table, and then he started up the ropes. He kind of turned back, and he said, a move. And he got on the top rope, and when he started off head first, he put his arms by his side like a torpedo, came head first. The first thing he hit the table was his head, and he went right through that table.
That was a classic Harley move from the top rope. I mean,
man. To go out and do it on the table, though, that just created more impact. And that table closed up on him. His feet were the only thing sticking out was his legs sticking out. He was dangling his legs. That was the finish, right? I mean, nobody going to get up from that. So, so we had a lot of matches. Harley and I, no telling how many times we sold out to all those big buildings there.
And that's the thing about the Texas Death Match. It goes how many falls it goes. It's just the guy that can't answer the bell, right? So
he couldn't answer the bell because he was stuck in the table. he couldn't get out of the table. They had to take 3 people to get him out of the table.
One of the things we've talked about in our series, Ron, is how much your granddad loved Cadillacs. He always had a new Cadillac every year, and then your dad did so many classic matches that involved Cadillacs, and you started booking Cadillac matches here with Bob Armstrong and Ronnie Garvin.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and one thing, real quick, like this, just to show you how much things have changed. I went to buy myself a Cadillac at a Cadillac. It was a big Cadillac dealership in Knoxville. I wanted to buy myself personally a Cadillac because I'd always wanted one like Roy. I thought I got to have me a Cadillac. And business was good. And so I went on the showroom floor and they had a beautiful Cadillac. I fell in love with a little blue one. And so I got ready to leave, and there on the showroom floor there was a pink four-door pink Cadillac. And I'd already made the deal with the guy what I would do and what I would pay him for it. And then I looked at that pink Cadillac and it just hit me, the old man, I got to thinking, well, the old man might have done something with a Cadillac like this. So never had a Cadillac tournament since I'd been there. So I said, what do you sell me that Cadillac for? I bought two Cadillacs off the showroom floor that day for $12,000.
Wow.
Wow. Well, great.
It was amazing. Think about it today. What would it be? It'd be 150 now, I guess.
Oh,
At
gosh.
least, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a Cadillac tournament. The finals ended up Bob Armstrong against Ronnie Garvin. Ronnie Garvin was the heel, and had a tremendous match, obviously. And at the end of the match, Bob actually won the match. And we had brought the Cadillac into the building before we ever let any people in. We set it back there in the back of the building, and we took those big old steel stanchions, and with a rope, you hooked the rope off on the stanchions, and so people could go right up and see the car, get close to the car, see it all night during the matches. And so when Bob won the match, Garvin jumped off the top rope on him. And then Garvin went down to the Cadillac and he took the rope off of it, the steel stanchion, and he took that steel stanchion and he threw it right through the front windshield of that brand new Cadillac.
Brand new. Wow.
I mean, whoa. I mean, that was the bigger pop than the match. I mean, the fans were like, oh my gosh, what in the heck? It was a hell of a spot, so. Yeah, we did Cadillac tournament. My old man had them, but I'd never seen anybody do that before. We ended up doing that again a few times once we went south into the Southern Territory down there.
And they'd seen it years before, and it had always drawn. So that makes sense that you'd do that. 77 was a sad year at one point because Roy, who had broken into the business in the late 20s and then had come to Kentucky and Tennessee in the early 30s and had such a run, and they had started downsizing the farm in 70, and he gotten sick during the 70s. In 77 he passed away. What was his funeral like, Ron?
There were no fans there. I mean, back in those days, you didn't advertise stuff like that, I guess. And
the obituary in the paper was just really small. I mean, it was not much detail about him at all. Just his survivors, and that was about it.
Yeah, yep, and and that was who was there. His was the survivors. His wife, her grandmother. Her mother. Who was my great grandmother, and we told the story about Bob having my dad, giving birth to my dad, and going back and plowing with the mule. My great grandmother outlived 5 husbands.
Wow!
Wow!
She lived to be 102.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, I come from a good
pretty strong
stock,
bloodline there, yeah.
Good stock. So but it was just Rob and Jimmy and I and Bob and Grandma Holland we called her, was her name, and Ruby and my mom and dad, and it was just a family affair. It wasn't a big deal. and not a lot of publicity about it or anything at that point.
How much longer did Bobby live after Roy?
Bobby lived to be about 85 years old. Bobby had a lot of consistent problems with cancer. She had cancer 3 times,
Mm.
and survived it and had had all the treatments and everything, and but she lived to be into her 80s. But I think her mother darn near beat her. Her mother
Wow.
almost survived longer than she did.
Now, one time when we were talking, just you and me, we were talking on the phone. You talked about Roy challenging you guys to bring him a rattlesnake.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, he sure did. I was a senior in high school. We lived in Mississippi. Dad had not quit wrestling. He had started farming. And we had bought a 2,000-acre farm, and we had become farmers. And he didn't have anything to do with wrestling. This is after the Memphis deal, where he got kind of booted out of Memphis, and so he had a real bad taste for his problems in Memphis and with his dad and everything. And so we were farmers there, and we went to visit Roy, and he told me and Rob, he said, "Do you guys ever have rattlesnakes down there on your farm? You ever see a rattlesnake down there?" And well, we had never seen one down there. We had all kinds of, poisonous snakes, but never seen a rattler. So we told him no, and he said, "Well, I tell you boys," he said, "if y'all would catch me a rattlesnake and you can bring them back up here to me, I'll give you $20." Right? So like $10
Alive
each,
though. Alive.
Alive. Oh yeah, yeah. He said, "Catch him. If you can catch a rattlesnake and bring him to me live, I'll give you $20 for it." So so we went home, and then about a week later, Dad had bulldozer, and he pushed over a big old stump, and out came a rattlesnake of all things, right? Big boy. And so Dad got off the tractor, the Caterpillar, and he caught the rattler. And he took him to the house, and then we put him in a 5-gallon bucket and put his top on the bucket, right? And we kept him there for a week, and then Dad basically had Mom drive us with the rattlesnake up to Roy.
To get that $20.
Yeah. So we could get the snake to Roy, right? So when we got there, we told him, we said, "Hey, we got you rattlesnake." "Oh, are you kidding me?" "No," I said, "Come on." So we went out there. We had the rattlesnake in the trunk of the car. And so we took the 5-gallon bucket out, took the 5-gallon bucket out. It had a top on it. And he turned the top off of it. He got the top, he threw it off, and he reached over and grabbed the bucket, and he dumped that rattler right in front of us, right? I mean, right in our feet, all of our feet. And I had never seen anybody move so quickly. I guess he had done this so many times. As soon as that rattler hit there, before he even had a chance to start to coil up, he just reached and grabbed him behind the neck. Bang! He had him, right? And he jerked him up, and he looked down there, and they had about 10 rattlers and a button on him. He was a big, nice rattlesnake. And he says, "You boy," he says, "you boys want to see something funny?" And I said, yeah. What are you going to do?" He walked him out to his milk barn, and he reached in the dresser there. He had a desk, pulled it open. There was a needle and a thread in there. And he had already, the thread was in the needle. Okay, so he was got prepared if he ever got the opportunity, I guess. So he sewed that rattlesnake's mouth shut.
No.
Showed his mouth shut, right? And then we stood right there and watched it, like looking at each other, like, what in the heck is he doing? And then he said, we asked him, what are you doing? And he said, "I'll show you." And he took the rattlesnake down to his Cadillac, opened the back door, and threw him in the car. And I said, so me and Rob were like, what's this all about? What do you got to do? And he says, "I got a couple guys riding with me tonight." So,
Oh my
we
God.
so we asked him, next morning, man, when he came back, we was right on him when he got out of bed. What happened, man? What happened with the rattler, right? And he said, oh, he said it was great. He said that he crawled underneath the front seat, and he said I got him in the car, and he was always driving 100 miles an hour. Wow, he lived a half mile off the main highway on a dirt road. He'd be doing 100 when he got to the main highway and a half mile on a dirt road. So when he hit the highway, he was doing 120 or so. And he says the rattlesnake was real quiet, didn't do anything. He just was underneath the seat there. And he said he got down the road about 5 miles. They're doing over 100, and he started telling a joke, and then he reached down there and he slapped the seat over top that snake, and that rattler took off, boy. And so he's telling us, and he said that rattler cranked up, and he said he was going. And we said, well, what did they do? And he said, well, he said they both had the back doors open at 80 miles an hour. They were about to go.
The rattlesnake rib.
Oh my God.
That's where your brother got the rib. We used to rib Bob Armstrong with those plastic rubber snakes all the time. That's where Robert got it from. We were leaving Savannah, Georgia one time. It was Robert, myself, and Bob Fuller, your brother Robert Fuller, and we're going on. All of a sudden, Robert says, "Stop there! I see something." So Armstrong was deadly afraid of snakes, as you know. So we'd stopped at one of those firework places where they sell those big old rubber snakes, and we had one curled up under the seat, just like you're saying there. And so as he's getting out, he grabbed it, shoved it in his pocket there. And Bob's opened the door. He's looking out. Robert goes over, grabs that rubber snake, drops it, grabs it, throws it into the car, and I tell you, Armstrong tore that car apart, man, trying to get out of that car. That's where your brother got that damn rib from.
Yeah, and there's Bob Armstrong when he was a 1970s porn star.
Star right there.
Yeah, that's coming up here pretty soon, man. That little story there about where that picture comes from.
Hey, Rod, when he's sewing up his mouth, was the snake not trying to bite him?
Huh? Oh yeah, but the snake couldn't bite him. The snake had his mouth open. He was trying to bite him. His teeth was moving. He would have bit him if he could, but he couldn't reach back there and get his hand because he had his head. That's all he had was his head sticking out there. So yeah, so the snake was pretty helpless, man. The whole darn deal. Hey, talking about that one that you just told about there, Gerald. I remember the cobra. We had a wrestler there that they used to bring a cobra to the ring. It was a big, huge ceramic snake. I can't remember who it was, and he was wrestling Bob Armstrong one night, and he had that ceramic snake stuck into a dressing room by itself. And he got Bob to come and see, hey, Bob, come down here, and I want you to do this such and such. And he got there, and he opened the door, and he had the snake. I'm not telling how long he'd had. He'd take it to the ring. It was his gimmick, right? And so he opened the door, and then the light was off, and Bob, he said, hey, go on in there, and then he reached over and turned the light on, and he slammed the door, and there was that cobra sitting right there in front of Bob, and Bob chopped his head off just a big swipe. Wow! And the head went flying in the floor and broke off the snake. And then the guy, I can't remember who the heel was. He was so mad. Oh, you ruined my snake from our gimmick. That Bob was horrible. He was horrified of snakes.
Oh, he was horrified of snakes.
If I'd have been riding in with Roy and I heard that rattlesnake and I looked down and saw it, I'd been out of that car too, man.
Yeah. I mean,
my oldest brother is crazy. Gene, he's getting ready to celebrate his 90th birthday this weekend, and so we used to, as kids, in Oklahoma, we used to have to go, grandma would send us out with a bucket and have to gather blueberries, bring them back in, make blueberry pies, blueberry muffins, all that stuff. My brother would see a rattlesnake, and this is the God honest truth. He would reach down, grab that rattlesnake, crawl him out, and whip it and break his damn neck.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Jerry, I grew up in Sweetwater, Texas, home of the world's largest rattlesnake roundup. They rounded them up every year.
Right.
It's a huge deal. It's the biggest one in the world. But every year, people come from all over the world. They get bit like crazy.
Yeah.
A bunch of northerners, people outside of the state, will come down and try to go hunt rattlesnakes. They don't know what they're doing, but they'll end up trying to get the tongs and stuff, and every year there's a bunch of them get bit.
Yeah, there used to be in the Amarillo territory, between one of those towns, there was a snake farm that they always used to take brand new guys in territory. That was one of their ribs. They'd take them to the snake farm. Well, another kind of family connection, 20 years before, you're knocking them dead in Knoxville, there for the Southeastern Territory. 20 years before, your dad had gone in and pioneered the Gulf Coast Territory and opened it up in Mobile and all up and down the Gulf Coast. And now in 1978, your family still owns it, the Fields brothers, and you go in, make a deal to buy the territory. Tell us how that came about.
Yeah, I don't know if there's how much you guys covered with Jim Barnett, but I think Barnett went in there and tried to buy it prior to me.
Yeah, we
right?
did. We talked
and
about
he
that.
left, and he didn't do it because it was so dead. It was down. It was bad territory. And so I went in and I made a deal with Lee, and he was running the wrestling part of the business at that point. And I bought out my father's old territory. Pretty crazy thing to do, actually. And it was really down. The territory was really, really dead.
It had come so far from all those, I think 38 big shows at Ladd Stadium in the 50s. And now it's 20 years later. Like you said, Barnett wanted to buy it, but it was just deader than a doornail. Yeah,
it was horrible. And I had Rocky McGuire, who was the guy that was handling stuff for Lee. He was handling especially I would call it the eastern side of the territory. And I think Cowboy Kelly, Bob Kelly, was doing the Mississippi side.
Yep.
And I went, Rocky took me around for a week. I spent a week there, went and saw all the towns, met all the people in the buildings, all the television people, and then decided I wanted to buy it. I wanted to buy it. And I wanted to buy it because Knoxville had become so successful. I had figured out how to make it happen, right? When I went there, it was dead too. And I had made it draw, and I knew I could do it again in someplace else. I had the formula kind of. So we went down there, Bob and I took Bob with me, 1978. We still running the territory in the north there with Knoxville. Rob was handling the booking there. And so Bob and I went down there to open up the Gulf Coast Territory, the old Gulf Coast Territory. And it was so down that first week we booked five events, I think. We were only able to have one of them. 4 of them we had to give the money back because there wasn't enough people there to wrestle for. We only had maybe 30 people that bought a ticket. And, and I just said, no, let's give the money back and we'll hold off a couple more weeks of TV, keep working on it. And so we had a really, really tough time getting it started. And I got into something there that I had never done before. My dad had never even done this. I had Lamar was an outdoor advertising company, Lamar Advertising. They handled billboards all along the Gulf Coast there. So I went to the Lamar company. I wanted to cover Mobile, Pensacola, Panama City, Dothan and Montgomery. And they put billboards for me in those markets, left them up for 2 months, got a real special deal. Normally it's a 1 month deal. They gave me a free month if I got involved with them just to prove that it worked. And that, along with the TV finally catching hold, and the fans, I guess the fans had left in groves. And, once we changed the TV over and they started seeing some different guys, we had a pretty darn good crew, man, down there. And we had David Schultz, Crazy David, and he was in that deal. And the Assassins. We had good group of talent, good guys there. And so that thing, it was dead in March. We opened it up on March the 3rd, my birthday. It was the first night we ran the territory. And that Dothan was the only town out of the 5 that had enough people that we felt like we could have the matches in. And so, but by midsummer, July, we were selling out. We went from dead to selling out in 6 months. And I gave a lot of credit to that to the billboard company. Plus, we worked hard. We worked our rear ends off down there. And we finally got that thing going big time.
Ron, you said you had a formula. What was your secret sauce, the Fuller secret sauce to be successful in the territory?
Well, one of the things was the TV show. I took that TV show, the Dothan. They'd been for years making their television show in Dothan. And I took the Dothan TV show and I used the same stuff that we were doing in Knoxville. I went up to the producers, the director upstairs. I asked him, I said, I want to do instant replays. And then
Hey, Ron, excuse me just a little. Can you lower your camera just a little bit? Sorry about that. We want to make sure. Perfect. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, I went upstairs and I said, can you do instant replays here? Because we were doing instant replays, all that stuff in Knoxville. That's one of the things that made us work in Knoxville.
Just to improve the quality of your TV production.
Yeah. So, and he said, "You mean like the big stations do?" And I said, "Yeah." Like the NBCs do and the ABCs. I said, "Yeah." And he says, "No, I can't do that." He goes, "We don't have the equipment for that." And I've been spending a lot of time with my director in Knoxville, who was the guy that told me he'd walk on water for me. And he did walk on water for me. And I went over to the guy and I said, "You got 2 machines here. You got 2 8-tracks here." "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "All right, here's how you do instant replays." And I taught him how to do the director of the show at the TV station to do instant replays. I had him doing everything that the Knoxville people did. I even put the personality profile in the middle of the show. I copied that TV, and the TV was so good and so different and so ahead of its time that all of a sudden, as soon as these people started seeing that kind of TV, instant replays, they didn't know that the territory changed hands. All they knew is, wow, somebody really got this TV going great. Gee, look at this program. So that was a big part of it. And I had the greatest, like I said, I had a great crew, guys that were willing to work their butts off, man. And me and Bob were top. I was the heel. Bob was the baby face. So we knew we had main events covered. And, we had the good tag teams. We had Schultz. We had Jerry Stubbs is a really young guy who's going to be great.
People know Schultz from the John Stossel fame. There was he always a little off the wall when you started him in?
John Stossel?
No, David Schultz.
Schultz.
He got trained by your uncle.
Yeah.
Trained by your uncle Herb.
David was always off the wall. David was a rare character. David got trained by Herb. Herb Welch trained David Schultz. And
he had to be a tough SOB just to get through training.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I asked him, I said, "Well, how was the training with Herb?" And he said, Ron, he said, the first time I went and worked out with her, he said, he tore me up so bad. He got me so dang out of breath, and I was out of shape. And he said, he said he had to help me to my car to get home, right? And he said, when I got home, he said, I opened the door and he said, I couldn't get out. I couldn't get my body to move. He said, I had to blow the horn and have my wife come and help me get in the house. So, so David was great, but Dave and I got into a tremendous, one of the worst riots. This is in this kind of help. This is a shape you got your territory. It's what made territories rock was heat. You had the hotter your heels were, the faster you're going to get. You're going to get to making money.
Yeah.
Okay, and we were acclimated to do anything. My heels were just David Schultz was one of them, and and the other the assassin dudes, they were great. And we were all willing to just go out there and burn them up until you have a ride every night. And so we had such a bad riot in Panama City when we were wrestling. It was me and Dave wrestling against Robert and Ricky Gibson, the two Gibson brothers.
Right.
And so they came to the ring, and we jumped them as soon as they got to the ring, and we busted up Robert where he was bleeding, and a couple of other wrestlers came down and got him, carried him back to the dressing room. That left just Ricky in the ring with me and David. And so Ricky says, he gets on the microphone and he says, I got to have a partner here, and I know so and so's back there, and I want you. Mike Stallings was a guy who was Jerry Stubbs'
Remember Mike?
cousin.
Yeah.
Mike Stallings. And they said, Mike, come out here and be my partner. Mike comes down and me and Schultz say, hell no, send him out of here. It's you. You're here. You're signed for the match. Your brother is not able to do it. You're going to leave. You got no guts. You can leave, and we'll raise our hands. And so Ricky stays. And then we get Ricky bleeding. Now we get Ricky bleeding pretty darn quick, man. We've already sent his brother to the dressing room. And so Ricky's out there, and the people come and get to the ring. They get him by the foot, and they drag him out of the ring. We got him by the hair of the head and trying to hold him and keep him in there.
Tug of war.
Yeah, with a tug of war with the crowd. I mean, there's like 40 people trying to get him out. And then they get him out, and I reach out there from the apron, and I grab him by the hair of the head. A guy cuts me with a knife on the arm. I see him, and I see it. I feel it, the burn, and I see it's bleeding there. I just drag him on in the ring, man. Here we go. We go at him still. I'm bleeding all over the ring. Then we finally, here comes, thank goodness, his brother. Here comes Robert. He's got the old Spirit of 76.
Spirit of 76. I love those old gimmicks.
And he makes the big comeback, boy. And it was still so hot. We had so much heat that when we got out of the ring, after they made a little comeback on us, we got out of the ring. We started to the dressing room. And like when I mentioned those steel stanchions, they had the steel stanchions like that around the ring. And we got on the floor, and there was no way. I mean, me and Schultz both looked at each other, and I said, the aisle was closed. There's no, we can't go through our exit. And the cops are left. The cops were standing there, were looking at us, and they turned around and went to the front of the building. They said, just hell with y'all, right? You got it here. And Schultz grabs up the steel stanchion, puts it over his shoulder, and he starts wading into that crowd. Somebody hit me in the head with a chair from behind. I never saw that. So we went through the dressing room door that night. Before we got through the door, the knives. People had opened their knives, and they were throwing their knives at us. Wow. And the 4 or 5 knives bounced off the dressing room wall, slid across the dressing room floor. We got the door closed. I was busted in the head. I had bleeding on the arm. That was just, and we had those. It was practically every night. So it didn't take but a month to go from nobody caring to having the houses full, man, and people just really. We had to go hire extra police every town. We went to, and they hadn't had that there in years. So heat is what did the deal. Heat is what really, really got that
That was your
territory going
secret
fast.
sauce was heat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hot
yeah,
heels, hot heels. You had two great territories, one based in Knoxville. This one you pretty much made your base in Pensacola. Were the guys living in Pensacola that were working in Gulf Coast?
yeah. Everybody lived there.
And they got to
Everybody.
be home every night, right?
Yeah, and I like that too. Another reason it was great territory, and I was able to get talent, is Pensacola had the most beautiful beach. And I mean, wow, I used that. I talked to guys and said, "You ever been to Pensacola Beach?" And if I had to throw that was the last straw. I throw in, come and see this beach. That's all I got to tell you. And I was able to get some of the great talent that I could have never gotten otherwise because of the city and the beach. And short trips. Back in those days when we first started, you went from Pensacola, Mobile, it's 50 miles. It was about like 125 to Dothan. It was 100 to Montgomery. I mean, it was kind of like the Knoxville territory. It was very close to the same thing. You had the short trips. You're home by midnight, except in Knoxville we had one major market. In that territory we had five.
Mm-hmm.
So we had five major towns. So, we were able to, we were outdrawing Knoxville within 6 months. We were producing more people and money than the Knoxville end.
And by this time, after Jerry, Jared, and Nick had their split in '77, Nick was ready to get out of Birmingham, and that was a major town that pretty much gave you the whole state of Alabama. So you bought Birmingham from Nick, right?
You sure did. We sure did. And we had been looking at it for a year because he had basically quit running in the year before that, or he had sold it to somebody that didn't know anything. And we knew he wasn't doing any business. And obviously, we're sitting there at that point. We got a great territory. It's on fire. And what if we had Birmingham? We were like, wow. And so we paid him $75,000, which was quite a bit of money back in those
for
days.
for one town, that was a lot of money.
Yeah, for Birmingham, but it was for more than just Birmingham. It was actually for all of northern Alabama. So it was Huntsville and Florence and Tuscaloosa and a lot of big spot shows going to be out of there,
Muscle
and
Shoals.
Birmingham itself. And Birmingham itself, it was dead. There again, it was another dead territory. But by golly, we knew how to build them. We'd built two at this point,
Wow.
and
Yeah, you
building
did.
Birmingham
And
was a
that
lot.
was there was a time where Birmingham was the number one town for Roy and Nick
Yeah,
back there, and
yeah,
then that Central Alabama had been your uncle, right? Had run there.
yeah,
Bill
yeah.
or Bill Golden
Bill
had
Golden.
had run
Yeah,
there. So you
Bill.
basically, when you bought Birmingham, you basically got a big town in another territory.
Yeah, yeah, big town and a whole nother territory. Could have been a separate territory if we'd have wanted to, but we just used it. We just added it to the southern end down there, and
Yeah.
so it and Birmingham, I went crazy, and I put the billboards. Right away. I learned my lesson down there before. First thing I did was make a billboard buy. They'd never run billboards for wrestling in Birmingham, and never, ever. No, nobody ever considered it. And I had found that was a great, great way to advertise. I'd made a lot of money off that once I finally found hockey.
And
That's when
that
I really made that happen.
And that municipal auditorium that eventually became Boutwell, it was a wrestling building. I mean, the people there
Beautiful,
were used
perfect,
to, they were used to going to wrestling in that building.
perfect building, perfect building. Had that big stage, and
You
as
eventually move your television
there
taping.
you go.
Right.
I eventually went all the way in that direction. Yeah, great market, a tremendous wrestling market, Birmingham, and it didn't take long for us to take that one from being dead to selling out too.
I mean, you got what 5,000, 6,000 that you can put in
Yeah,
there.
actually, you could put 7,000 in there.
Yeah,
You know,
great building
so
for one of those good old Southern wrestling buildings.
yes, sir, man, it was great.
Another thing we've talked about off and on throughout this series is the Tennessee and Alabama Boxing and Wrestling Commissions. And so you're really involved now that you moved into the state of Alabama. You got to deal with another commission. So how did that go? Because I know what happens here, but I want to hear I want to hear your retelling of it.
Well, what actually happened is in 1978, a lot of states, I don't know how many states did this, but they had what was called sunshine commissions. And that meant there were certain representatives and state senators and whatever that 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 went and they forced all these things like these commissions, like the boxing and wrestling commissions and all that, to come in and prove that you were doing a needy job and doing it properly. Okay, so they required that was going to happen, and they sent me a letter because I was involved in wrestling, and they wanted to have both sides. Obviously, the boxing and wrestling commission guys, they all came to it. They had to, and then they wanted to hear from the people they were having to do business with. And so they sent me a notice that a little letter from the state capitol in Tennessee that said we're going to have this meeting, the Sunshine Committee, and you're invited, and we're going to review the actions of the Boxing and Wrestling Commission. And I was like, whoa, boy, are you kidding, man? I was like, hot dog, So I called up Jerry and Nick right away. I said, you get the letter? And they said, what letter? The letter from the state capitol about the athletic commissions. And they both said, yeah, we got it. And they said, you ain't going, are you? And I said, you darn right I'm going. What do you mean you ain't going? Why aren't you going? Oh, Ron, Ron, that they ain't going to kill the commission. And when you show up and you try to kill the commission, and we
Commission's going to
know,
come back on you, right?
there you go. He goes, you're going to be out of business. They're going to put you under, man. And I said, you guys got no balls. I said, I'm going to be sitting there, man, front row when this thing starts. So I went to the deal when they had the deal. And they had all the commissioner guys there, all of them. And they had it was in a big room. And they had all of the senators and the representatives and the people that's hearing the argument sitting up at the front. They had one big side and two big sides of the building. One's half full of all the commissioners and all their family and all their whatever. And I was the only person sitting on the other side, the other aisle, right? So I got my opportunity to come up and say what I wanted to about the athletic commission. And I went up and told them exactly how the athletic commission got started and how my granddad had to make sure that there was nobody going to be able to run wrestling but him in this state. And he was a smart dude. And I said, and he went out and he got himself town started and he got things going. And I said, he then figured out that, hey, I need to get me somebody to back me up. And I had to explain how the whole commission worked, how it all worked and everything. And I said, and at the end I said, basically, I said, all these guys sitting over here were brought in 40 years ago to be able to make sure that my grandfather was going to always be able to run this state of Tennessee and be the only one able to run this state of Tennessee. And I said it was all done to perpetuate a monopoly for my granddad.
Wow. You
Oh,
flat told her you had a
boy, they were all
monopoly.
dropping their heads over there while I'm going through this, man. Their all heads are going down, and then and all I'm looking at that group of guys sitting up there, and they're into it. Like, oh, are you serious, man? So boom, came time that 2 months later they sent out the little deal. Boom, the letter came to me and said, "We're proud to announce that we're." We are abolishing the Boxing and Wrestling Commission in the state of Tennessee, and Nick and Jerry never even called me and thanked me.
Wow.
You know?
That was a lot of
So,
money that wasn't going to be going to the commission.
A lot,
oh yeah, no kidding, man. I mean, it's so. And my dad now he had moved and he was living over in Bolivar, Tennessee, over in the west side of Tennessee, and he got he got the word of it, and in Alabama that they were going after the commission. So, and he hated the commission, man. I mean, my dad, that they stole Memphis basically from him, right?
Right.
You know,
Right.
so he went to a lawyer though, and he got a lawyer and he took him to court and he beat him in court. He beat the commission in
Wow.
court. And then the commission went and found another judge that went and overruled the deal. Okay. And when that happened, the dad came to me and he said, now they've ruled the deal. And I said, Dad, I said, the lady that sells tickets for me in Birmingham, her husband is a state senator. And I said, I tell you what, I said, I'm going to go and talk to him. And so I went and talked to this guy. He took me into Montgomery on a Monday morning. This is just 2 weeks or so after they overturned the ruling, and they're going to put the commission back in. And he took me and introduced me to all these different people, politicians, and then I told him the same story, just the same story that I told the Tennessee politicians. And the guy took me to probably 50, 70. I was there 5 days. All I did was just went and talked to these representatives and senators. And then he says, now write up the bill. He wrote up a bill to get rid of the athletic commission. They voted them out, bang. And I got that done by going to the commission. Then I was afraid. I said they're going to overrule this somehow. You know, they're going to. I felt like it wasn't secure that it was absolutely done. And George Wallace was the governor, and he was really good friends of Jimmy Golden and Bill, who had been in Montgomery and the wrestling, and he knew about the wrestling and everything. And me and Jimmy Golden got a meeting with George Wallace. And we gave him a little bread on the end of it, right?
Of course.
And there he was.
The old golden
Yeah.
handshake, as Eddie called it.
So there we were, he's sitting in a wheelchair, he's looking at us and he's talking about, boy, you don't know how lucky you guys are. Look at you, big old strong men. And basically I'm here in the chair and all that. And anyway, I gave him some money. At the end of the deal, passed him a little deal on his desk. Here, George, thank you very much. He said, boy, and he took it, and I'd never seen this before. He took it out of it was $100 bills. He took it out of the envelope and he put it up to his ear and he went, you could almost hear the bills. And I think he knew exactly how much money it was without
that's how those other guys counted their money right there.
So he counted that money and then he took a big grin came on his face and he says, boys, he said, I don't think y'all ever going to have to worry about an athletic commission in Alabama anymore.
Wow.
What a story.
Wow. Just wow. So
well,
one thing,
George Wallace, that's something.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was. We were living in 2 great states right there, man. Tennessee and Florida. I mean, Tennessee and Alabama there, and wow. And we had it both cranked up and doing big time business.
You know, one
19.
thing I wanted to ask you that connects to your grandfather just a little bit, but you wrestled a ton in St. Louis. And most of the time, just the best of all the territories wrestled in St. Louis for Sam Mushnick. They always introduced you and billed you as being from Dyersburg, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Was that because of Roy?
I don't know. I guess it probably was. I mean, he was really close to Sam. And I got to be great friends with Sam. I really, really admired Sam much. He was a great guy.
I mean, even
Uh,
when you were living in Florida or Tennessee or Alabama, they always introduced you as Ron Fuller from Dyersburg, Tennessee.
Harrisburg, Tennessee, yes. And I didn't care. I was just happy to
Yeah.
be able to
You,
work
you,
St.
you were
Louis.
you were in St. Louis. That's the same with me. Blackwell, Oklahoma. I don't care. Just introduce me.
There you go. I mean, you're in that town, man. You're being somebody. You're gonna
Best
You're
be
of the
special.
best.
somebody if you
You're
ain't
special.
already.
Yeah.
You
Best of
know.
the best.
And I worked. I got to tell y'all one story here, and I don't think I got to tell this in the last show, but since we brought up St. Louis here, I got to tell you and John, you appreciate this, Gerald. Uh, I left West Palm on a Saturday morning, September 1st, 1973. Went to St. Louis to work TV. Okay. I got the TV that day, and they normally did two TVs, but for some reason they had three TVs that day. And they put me on all three TVs. Okay. And the first TV, I worked against Johnny Valentine. The second TV, I worked against Gene Kaninsky.
Oh,
The
man.
third TV, I worked against Terry Funk. Okay.
Wow.
And they didn't beat me on any of them. They were trying to put me over, trying to build me right. So I went 15 minutes or more on three straight TVs against those three guys, and then got on an airplane. They had to get the policeman to take me to the airport so that I could catch the plane. Flew to Tampa, and I worked with another NWA world champion, Dusty Rhodes. So in an 8-hour period of time, I wrestled three present or former world champions and Johnny Valentine.
Wow. Who should have been a world champion?
Yeah, who should have been a world champion. I always said that too.
And
So,
got Johnny Valentine in the first of 3 television tapings. Goodness
yes.
gracious.
Yeah, in the first one, man. And then Gene Kaninsky. Oh, I think Gene's worse than Johnny. I'm not sure which one of those two was the worst. Wow.
Gene was one of those heavy-handed guys too, just like Johnny.
Yeah. He was not a good deal. So in 8 hours, I wrestled did 4 times, and those 4 guys. Jeez, man.
Wow, what a day.
Yeah, what a day, man. That's what I said. And then I got on the plane and flew home.
Yeah, and work with Dusty.
So in 74, you bought Knoxville, and you got it going. You got, sellouts, small, loop. Everybody's home every night. Then you buy the Gulf Coast territory. You got it going. Small loop, guys home every night. You're filling up your buildings. You got rid of the commissions. But in 79, it's your worst year in pro wrestling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
because you got the Plan B deal that comes up.
Yeah. I got the other side of the sport, which I had never had to deal with that before. And I had 5 guys that decided they wanted to take the Knoxville territory, that they were going to be able to take it away from me and run me out of town, and so that.
You think that was because you were an absentee owner basically up in Knoxville?
Yeah, it's because I was spending a lot of time in Alabama. Yeah. It was I'd been down there in 1978, and I didn't wrestle in Knoxville 3 times in 1978. I spent the whole year down there trying to get that new territory running. And then I come back home in 79. I got Bob Roop, make a booker out of.
Well, I was just going to say, to set the scene, your brother Robert gets a chance to go to Memphis and book over there for Jerry Jarrett.
Yeah.
And so Robert goes over to book the western end of Tennessee for Jarrett, and then you promoted Bob
I
Roop to be your
replaced
booker.
him with a snake. I
So,
just
so,
didn't know it. I
so you made
replaced him with Bob Roop,
yeah,
who had about 2 years earlier than that tried to steal the territory from Roy
Roy
Shires
Shire.
in
Yeah.
San Francisco. And I had no knowledge of that. I never had ever been told about that. And I make Bob Roop my booker. So now I have a booker who's going to take four of my, and everyone was Ronnie Garvin, Bob Orton Jr., Ron Wright, and the great Malenko. And
And all those guys you had given great breaks to in the Knoxville territory, right?
oh, they
You were
were top
making them a
guys.
good
They
living,
were
yeah.
making a hell of a lot of money, man. They were all doing big business. They were making good money, and they had been friends. Some of those guys, Malenko was down there in Florida when I was there. I mean, I'd been with a lot of those guys before.
Well, Malenko was tied even as far back with your dad and probably some of your uncles.
Yep, yep. Yep. All of a sudden, I got competition. I got opposition, and
How did you find out about, was there any word going around? I mean, of course you didn't know. You kind of found out about Plan B about the same time we did, but did you feel, or I mean, you were absentee, but did you feel or hear anything that was going on there?
I had nobody. I had one person, man, that came to me who was a great friend. Obviously, had they offered him the opportunity to become a part of it too, and he came and turned me on to what was going on. Dick Slater.
Later.
Dick Slater came to me and he says, "Ron, you're going to have a problem here." And and it hadn't even started at that point, but so Dick turned me on to it, and so we fought that battle from about June of 1979 to about September of 1979. Town had been selling out the Coliseum shows. Coliseum shows dropped from 6,000 people to 3,000 people. Uh, but their shows, they couldn't get 500. But they were running the show. We run Friday night in the Coliseum. They run Saturday night in the park. And we were doing right 3,000. They were doing 800. Not even 1,000 people. They couldn't get it
Were,
going at
were,
all.
were they attempting to get your TV slot, or did they get their own TV
No,
slot?
they got their own TV. They went over to the old warp your head off old guy. He was still there in that TV
Yes.
station that went out 40 miles, and that's where they got their TV. So, so
And then
I just
they
got to.
eventually they eventually run out of money or whatever, and then they go over. Well, Bob Roop, Ronnie Garvin, and Bob Orton Jr. go over to work for Angelo Poffo in Lexington
Yeah,
for
they,
ICW. I think Great
um,
Malenko goes back to Florida, and Ron Wright, he's just kind of out of a job, right?
he's out of a job. I mean, he did the wrong thing. I forgave all those guys, except I have never talked to Bob Roop since. But I have forgiven all those guys, had great long conversations, become friends again with them. Even hired Ron Wright again in Continental. And
But the town is burned, and
yeah,
you can't get it
the town
going.
was, and then I sold it. I sold it to Barnett. I sold it to Barnett and to Fred Ward, who was he was the other promoter in Georgia,
Right, right.
and they couldn't make it go. They never could make it go, and then they sold it to Ric Flair and Blackjack Mulligan,
Money.
and
Yeah.
uh, and they could never make it go. And about 5 years after I left, there was no wrestling at all in Knoxville, none whatsoever, till later on, till we get to Continental.
Now, one thing that does happen in '79 is you had a booker that worked for you, Louis Tillet, and he had found Terry Bollea, who had a couple of matches in Florida, and then came
Wait
in.
a minute. I got to tell you, he didn't fight Terry Bollea. I'm sorry.
Well, we talked about Terry debuting down there in Fort Myers, Florida, right? Yeah, you found Terry Bollea originally.
Well, yeah, Florida found him.
Yeah, in Ron's universe, Louis brought him in, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm running. I go home in '79. I got opposition, so I'm going to stay there and try to get that situation squared away. And I hired Louis to let, and Louis went. I guess this was after Gerald had all kinds of different problems with with book Terry at that point, and you know Louis went down, and he got him, I guess, after you guys, what did Matsudo do? He broke his leg.
Well, what happened is Johnny Valentine, we all respect like crazy. He just didn't know what to do with Terry, and you know how it is when you're a local guy, Ron, and you're breaking into the business. They want you to pay your dues for some reason. And I really couldn't understand that local guy, but you could just see Terry was, and Johnny just didn't have any clue how to get this guy over. And so Terry got frustrated, as a lot of young guys do that's looking to make some money. He was making more money playing rock and roll. So he quit the business, moved over to Palm Beach. Him and Brutus Beefcake opened a gym. I'm just filling in the blanks here. And then that thing kind of didn't go anywhere. And he wanted to get back into business. And Louis Tilley was called, and Louis brought him in, and we was sent up to Tennessee. That's really the progression of him getting up there. And all this was like in probably less than a year or so. So you guys were still getting a fresh Terry Bollea, which nobody knew.
Oh yeah, and he was sure green too, man. I'll tell you.
That's what I mean. He was getting a very. He probably had a total of 5 or 10 matches.
He couldn't do anything. Louis called me up, and when he got him there, and he says, "Ron, I need you to come down here and work with this new guy I found." And he says, "He don't know anything." And he said, "And the more you can work with him, the quicker he's going to be better." And so I went down there, and I remember first time I ever saw him is Dothan, Alabama. I went down there to Dothan, and I got in the ring, and I saw him coming from the back of the building. He had his chest shaved, and he had black hair, and a V shape down to the front of his tights. I mean, black hair, not blonde, and big, huge son of a gun. And when we locked up, I said to myself, "Wow, Louis, what do you expect me to do here?" Right. So anyway, but that Louis pushed him hard. He got him off to a great start.
And what a better brain to take a young rookie than Louis Tilley. You and I were talking about it earlier this morning before we started the show. Louis Tilley's finishes, I mean, they were Eddie Graham type finishes, and Louis would actually get Tony and John would get blown up telling you a finish, and you were just so into it the way he built the story, right, Ron? You remember those?
Yeah. It's kind of like getting an Eddie Graham finish. It's kind of like Eddie giving you a finish, And he's halfway through. I remember when I first started getting Eddie Graham finishes, he'd be halfway through it, and I would just be going, "Oh no more,
please, please,
no more,
stop.
And then when he would leave the dressing room, whoever it was I was working with, I'd go and say, "Well, sit down and you got to go through it all again, every bit of it, right?"
I'd look over the guy and said, "I hope you didn't get that because I lost it that first 5 days."
Yeah.
But they had Stu Schwartz and those great referees that we had down there. They would hear Eddie Graham finish, and man, they could recite it word for word.
Yeah, because you
boy,
get to the
it was
back
really
and Eddie,
something.
you get to the back and Eddie would tell you you left one piece of it out or
You
something.
left. Why did you leave? I told you 3 drop kicks, and you only drop kicked him twice. Why?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah.
Right, Rod?
Oh, it was ridiculous. I mean, first time I ever heard Eddie finish when I went to Tampa, the first night I ever worked Tampa. And when I went down there was the only time I was in the main event, only time I was in Tampa for a year and a half, right? And I'm on top, and I can't remember who it was. A 6-man tag, and it was an elimination 6-man tag.
Ooh, I
And
can
he
imagine.
started giving the finish, right? And I'd only been in the business for 6 months, right? I'm like, and he got the first guy out, and here's as the second one's going to go. Here's the third guy out. And I was like, oh my gosh, man. I was just, uh, it was a horrible experience for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
so we took Terry though, and took Terry, and Louis pushed him, like I said, and he was smart. He had him do very little, uh, and uh, and he had him do bear hug because he's a big strong guy, and that made sense, right? He's a heel, and he would do the bear hug, and then he taught guys coming in. He had Lester Welch come in, and he had Terry put the bear hug on him. Lester was taken up for his boy Roy or whatever, and so Terry put the bear hug on him and did the bleeding out of the mouth. He bled out of the mouth. He bled out of the mouth for 4 or 5 guys. I went back and worked with him one more time, and then he next week after I worked with him the second time, we had Harley come. Harley worked with him. We went outside, and because we knew that he was over at this point. He's getting over, right, big time. And so
Barely a year in the business, right?
yes, early in the business. Oh yeah, he's been in the business. He probably had 50 matches, maybe, and he's working with Harley. And I said we can't put them all in this building. They're selling out, right? I said we need to go to get us a football field. They got us a football field, a high school football field. Drew 8,000 people with Terry Bollea. He wasn't the Hulk. He wasn't called the Hulk at that point. I can't remember what we called him for sure.
Charlie Golden, right?
There you go, Sterling Golden. Sterling Golden, and they drew 8,000 darn people in Dothan, Alabama.
wow.
So I got one territory that's dying. I'm fighting to keep it alive. I got the other one that's pretty much on fire. It's still doing good. And that southeastern territory down there out of Pensacola, it just stayed good. And once we
Rob,
got it going.
the Memphis thing runs its course, and so he comes back to work with you, and then you guys make this decision that you're going to switch up every year as the booker,
Yeah.
down in Gulf Coast.
Yeah, Rob had been booking. Rob booked Southeastern for me in Knoxville for about 4 or 6 years that we were there. He was the booker, and then he booked a little bit down there in the South End. Then he went and did that Memphis deal, and he came back. And so we made an agreement. I had kind of got into wanting to do the booking because. I did that when we went down and opened up the South End. I was the booker, me and Bob. Bob was like an assistant. Bob helped me out, helped me with ideas and stuff. And so I went and got. Rob went off to Memphis. Then he came back to the territory. So I sat down with him and I said, let's alternate every other year. You book one year, I'll book the next year. And we made that agreement, and we actually did that for about the first 4 years before we got around to. Rob ended up going to book for Georgia. He booked for Barnett.
Yeah,
I remember when he came in.
After
Yeah.
that deal happened in Knoxville, you obviously probably felt very hurt and betrayed. Did that change you at all as an owner or as a promoter?
Oh yeah, it affected me. I'd say it affected me. I thought those guys were my friends, and and they were my friends until they got, what's the old saying, one rotten apple in the barrel, and they got that rotten apple, and they kind of went the wrong direction, and they all, every one of them, like I said, I've talked to them all, and they all agreed that they made a mistake, that it was a bad thing for them to do, and they suffered more from it than anybody, and they really did because they quit making money.
Well, obviously, I mean, you trusted Rob. And so with him there, it gave you a chance to step away and take a little bit of a break. You'd book a year, and then you'd have him book a year. What'd you do in the times where you got that off year?
Uh, I usually didn't do very much, to be honest with you. I just tried to enjoy myself. I tried not to get in Rob's way. I never talked to him about what was going on, what he was doing. He never came to me and had any opinion about what I was doing either. So it worked good. I got a nice suntan, down there in
You
Florida.
enjoyed Pensacola Beach.
I got involved. I'll tell you what I did. I got involved in the Cayman Islands. I went to the Cayman Islands. My dad had me come to the Cayman Islands in at about 1982, and they were running a show. Him and Eddie was running a show in the Cayman Islands, and I worked on that show. And then Eddie and both Dad sat me down that night, and they said, "Ron, we don't want to run this anymore. We don't want to do this. And would you be interested? You got territory, and you got some guys. You got your own thing going. Would you like to run here?" And they were only running once a year. So I said, "Yeah, I'll run this town. I'll run it with these guys." They were working with a couple of Cayman guys that were setting everything up for them. And so I got involved. And later on, once we got down there to where we left, we're at this point now where I left Knoxville and I went full time down to Pensacola. I moved from Knoxville, Pensacola permanently. And so was all my partners. Bob lived there, Roy Lee lived there, Jimmy lived there, Robert lived there. We all, for the first time since we bought that territory, lived in it. And we already had it going good. It exploded once we all got to work and focusing on that one territory.
Then you kind of did the most unthinkable thing. You took your hottest baby face and turned them heel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We worked.
To me, that's just really forward thinking and really gutsy to take a beloved baby face like Bob Armstrong was. And people don't realize how over those guys in the South were with the fans. And to take a beloved guy like Bob Armstrong and turn it. What was the mindset behind it? Were you guys looking for or hot for a heel or what was the situation?
We had Bob had all those sons, and they were all starting to come to the work. He was training them all. Brad was already working. He just started. Scott was about to come in the next year. After a year after that, Steve is going to be working, And I got to thinking, man. I said, well, and I had been the heel there myself to start with, and Jimmy was a great heel. Jimmy Golden, there's my cousin. Rob had never healed in his life, and I got to thinking, and I sat down with Bob one night, and I said, "Bob, here's the deal. You got your sons." I said, what if you were to turn heel on me?" And then I said, I'll have Jimmy Golden, my cousin. He'll be kind of hanging out with me. We'll turn Rob into later on, we turned him into a heel along with me and Jimmy. But Bob liked the idea. And the great part about it, Jerry, is we knew nobody was going anywhere. None of this group is leaving, right? we're not
You
going to have to
you
go.
you made them partners, right? So they were invested.
Yeah. He's a partner. He was one of the 5 partners in the company. So now I'm not only getting Bob, I'm getting 3 great wrestlers besides Bob. His boys, Brad particularly was a
Brad, yeah.
phenomenal kid from day one. So so I talk him into doing this angle, and we set the angle up. It took us a while to set the angle up as one of those deals in which I worked with Bob. I was a baby face. He was a baby face. We were both baby faces for about a year and a half there straight after me and him had that year wrestling against each other the first year, getting the territory off the ground. Then we were both baby faces. And then we had a tournament in Mobile, and in that tournament, it ended up me and him in the finals, 2 baby faces in a finals match. And a great little baby face match. Crowd really got into it, and I won. And so I'm going to get the winner of this tournament's going to get the flare. And so when I
Now
beat
let
him,
me jump in here. You own some tape that we're going to show coming up in this episode here.
yes. If you want to, I kind of set it up a little bit, and then we'll show the match, right? Okay, so
Right.
so let me
Yeah.
just go a little further here. So we have this match, the finals of the tournament. We both raise our hands at the end of it. It's a babyface deal. I go on TV the next week and I say, and I'm there making an interview, and Bob comes out and interrupts me, and he says, Ron, I've been in this sport all my life. He goes, I wanted so bad to wrestle Flair. I want to be world champion. But he says, after the match with you, he goes, you've got the best hold in the world. Nobody's ever broken it. And he goes, I want to ask you, would you do me a favor? I want to be in the ring when somebody I know wins the world championship, he says. And he goes, I want this. Would you let me referee this match? We're big buddies, right? We're great friends, right? And I just go, oh, heck yeah, Bob, are you serious? You wanted me? Oh, yeah. Now, and that's where we're going to do this match. Okay. So, anyway, after this match, Bob is a heel. Wow. I mean, the, this match has 10,000 people. We had 10,000 people for this match in Mobile's big auditorium. Uh, and then so Bob he 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 just turns into a rotten ass heel. He does everything that you could imagine to make himself worse. That's where you got that picture of the.
Yep,
Of
that's the picture right
There
here.
we go.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's his attitude. You can see his attitude in that picture right there.
Right.
He grows the mustache. He comes to the set and he smokes cigarettes while he's doing. He smokes the cigarettes while he's doing promos. Uh, he and he has a he and I get Gerald. If you met Bob's wife, I'm sure you
Yes.
probably have at some point. Great lady, Gail. Bob,
Right.
and he goes on every interview. He talks about his girlfriend. Now, everybody knows he's married. And half of his story, half the interview is on his girlfriend. Fannie Mae Titweiler is her name.
Fannie Mae.
You're kidding me.
Titweiler.
Fannie
My
Mae.
girlfriend, Fannie Mae, I got to show you what she gave me this week. And he brings out the presents of the week from his girlfriend. Oh, he was one of the greatest heels I have ever seen. Ever seen. He was
Fannie Mae
Titweiler.
Titweiler. Fannie Mae Titweiler.
Fannie Mae Titweiler was her name.
Wow.
And so, wow, he was such a phenomenal heel. And
So as a special referee in the match, he turns on you in the match with Flair.
yes.
And then
At the end of the match, I put my inside toe hold that my dad used for a finish, which honestly nobody ever broke. And to have a great finish, if anybody ever breaks your finish hold, you know, that hold is done. My dad never, if he put that hold on a guy, it was over. And in this match, and Bob had said so in this little interview, you know, he said, "You've got the greatest hold, Ron, and I know you're going to you put it on me and you're going to put it on him. And when you do, you're going to be the next world champion because nobody can get out of it."
Because it was called the Fuller leg lock.
Fuller leg lock. And
Yeah.
so I put the Fuller leg lock on Flair, end of the match. And he's down there like he's asking Flair. And then all of a sudden, he starts dropping elbows on me. And wow, they spend 3 minutes tearing my knee up and bloodying me up. And after it's all over, and so territory was already set 10,000. We got 10,000 people watching that match. After this is over, we were selling out. We were selling out sometimes at 5 o'clock in the afternoons, and there would be more people outside the buildings than inside sometimes.
Wow.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that leg lock, that wasn't used by anybody else, and one of the reasons is because you guys were all tall guys, and you had to be kind of tall to do that hold, didn't you?
Long legs. You had to have long legs to be able to make it happen.
Because you kind of rolled into it, right?
Yeah. It's a shooting hold. It was a shooting hold. In fact, the hold was shown to Roy way back by the original Dutch Mantel, and
Wow.
but they did it from your hands and knees. If you got a guy on his hands and knees and you grapevine that leg, you reach back and get the foot on the leg that you've grapevine, and you go south with it. And wow, I mean it's a leg breaker. You can break the leg. Or the knee. If the leg don't go, the knee's going to tear out.
Which is kind of awesome because the whole psychology of the match, Flair is known for the figure 4 leg lock, and you've got the Fuller leg lock, and it's sort of like the two finishing holds, and you get Flair in the Fuller leg lock, and then Bob turns on you.
Yeah.
And then after the match, you're so upset about it and so brokenhearted over your close friend turning on you in the match, you turn in all your wrestling gear.
I took my two shows after they showed that show. They showed the match. The next show, I go to Charlie Platt, and we go into the Dothan building, and I hang my robes on the ropes, and I put my shoes on the mat. I gave my shoes, my wrestling shoes, to him, and I said, "I'm done. I'm done." I mean,
Wow. I
I'll
love
never
that
get
part
over
of
this.
it. I never heard of that part of it. Fill us in
Oh, I
complete
mean,
details
we
on
took
it.
it to the limit. We took
Yeah.
it to the limit, man. We went. It was
You're
fantastic.
so distraught. You're so distraught over your best friend turning on you that
Yeah,
you're ready to quit the business.
yeah. And that's what I did. I said, hung it out. I gave the stuff to him. So then let's go a little further with Bob's deal here. Bob then, he got to where he got so bad that he had a match. Brad wrestled Ricky Gibson in a match, and in the match, it's a babyface match. Ricky leapfrogs and hurts his knee. He's down, and Brad's standing over him, and Brad's like checking him, and sorry, and here comes Bob. Bob gets in the ring and he says, beat him right now, beat him. And Brad says, no, Dad, no. He's shaking his head, no. And Bob says, beat him, by golly. Bob gets in his face, and all the studio's going nuts, man. And then Bob hauls off and slaps him. Pow! He slaps Brad.
I get goosebumps even thinking about it.
And wow! And when he does, Brad gets in his face, but Brad backs off because he's a good kid, right? And the story is just great. That storyline there is really great. And then 2 weeks after that, Bob's got the commentator's got named Charlie Platt, and he does a great job, and he don't like the fact what Bob did, and he's lots of times he'll leave the desk when Bob's doing he'll interviews. He just gets up and leaves, and Bob slaps him on one of the shows, and the commentator, right?
Yeah.
That just set it on fire. I mean,
Yeah, that never happened anywhere. I mean,
yeah, you don't slap. Yeah, that's one guy you don't have. Nobody touches, right?
yeah,
Right.
that was the hard-clad rule against Gordon. You didn't lay a hand on Gordon.
Oh yeah, no. And well, when he did that, the switchboard lit up on the television station, and wow, they had a group of Marines that were in town that saw the show, and they showed up at the damn studio. We had to get the police to give Bob an escort out of the studio.
That's great.
After it was over. I mean, he had so much heat. It was just phenomenal heat. And so we do that angle, and as we work through that whole angle, I take my stuff, I retire, I'm done, I'm finished, and then Bob, he just gets worse and worse and worse. Then he gets on Robert, and when he attacks Robert's wrestling,
my little brother.
No business and now he's going to get the brother. I'm going to finish that family, right? And so when he does that, then I've been out for like 6 months or whatever it is, and Charlie Pratt, we do the show where he's booked against the mystery partner, and he says, "Yeah, I know it's just Robert Fuller, and I've already done to him what needs to be done." And then Charlie says, "No," he says, and he reaches underneath the desk, and Bob's sitting next to him, and he takes out my old wrestling boots that I gave him, and he sets them on the table, and he says, "That's who you're going to be wrestling."
Wow.
That's how you get introduced back into the deal.
That's how I get introduced back into the territory.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And Ron, were you off TV that whole time?
About 6 months.
I was. Oh yeah, I never was on that single TV. I was never seen again.
Your best friend turned on you. You quit the business. You're done. You're finished.
And I never was seen until he takes the boots that I left on the ring and sets them up on the table.
Wow. I love
good old Southern wrestling.
God, I love it.
then you guys work it up to a loser leaves Southeastern match.
Yeah, right? I mean,
where Bob, you run Bob out of town, basically.
Yeah, I work it up. Yeah, and we go another 6 months. Oh, well, you can imagine we was already selling out. Now we got no big enough buildings. Our buildings are too small, And if I had been like my father, I would have gone to the football fields. I would have gone to the stadiums. And I should have, probably. There's no telling how many thousands we turned away that didn't get to see some of those matches. But yeah, so I go and send him out of the territory to have a loser leave town, and he leaves. He loses, and he goes to Georgia, and then 4 months later, he has his accident in Columbus. He drops the weights on his face and tears his nose off. Mm-hmm. Right.
That's when they start wearing the mask as the bullet, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you guys, we worked we had so many tremendous angles going, between me and Rob and being in the business for a lifetime. We just kept coming up with great stuff, and we built a lot of it around Bob and then his family against me and Rob and Jimmy. And the first time we ever got Rob in the business to go heel, we started Continental. 1985, we left the studio in Dothan, and we went into Birmingham, into the big building, 2 big old huge trucks with the 5 cameras and all the tremendous television show, tremendous TV. Gordon Sully was the commentator. 7,000 people in the studio audience. We basically, building full of people, and so much excitement with doing those kind of shows. That's why Vince turned, that's what Vince went to. And I don't know if we were the first ones to do it. We did it in July of 1985. I don't know when Vince did his first TV show from a major arena.
It was along in there, pretty close in there, somewhere in the early to mid '80s. But
So
there was a guy who had been basically a enhancement talent in Mid-South Wrestling for Bill Watts, named Marty Lundy. And
yeah,
he had been in the locker room in one of the Mid-South, I think it was in Shreveport there, where they did the Irish McNeil Boys Center, where they did the television. And somebody told him he looked like an Anderson.
yeah,
And so then he came back to work for you in Southeastern as Arn Anderson.
Arn Anderson. Yeah, we turned him into an Anderson. We sure did, because he looked like an Anderson. And wow, what a talent! Uh, what can you say about that, man? I mean,
What a
he's
tag team. He and Jerry Stubbs.
and him
they
and
were,
Jerry Stubbs, Mr. Olympia. Jerry put the hood on as Mr. Olympia. Wow. And we had a great program then going. Uh, Bob had been out of the territory and all that stuff, and he had his face all fixed. He spent more than $30,000 on his surgeries
Ooh.
to get
and,
his
and he
face
was out for like
rebuilt.
3 or 4 months, right?
Yeah, rebuilt his entire face basically, and so he
For
came
those
back.
that don't know, he was on a machine, and the weight was so heavy that the metal cable snapped and came down and hit him in the face.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
and it took his nose off his face
Took it close,
basically,
yeah.
and so he came back home, and he wasn't able to work for months and months. So he's back in the territory. I have sent him out. He was a nasty heel, and then I get in this program with Marty Lundy, with Arn and Jerry, and it's I'm bringing in the greatest partners I can. Arn and Jerry have the belts. Nobody can beat them. They're unbeatable, and I started running through all these people, and about the months down the road there. Guess who shows up and says, Bob shows up and he comes in and stops me in the middle of an interview and says, you know what's happened to me, and you know what I've been through, and this has changed my life, and I realize what I've done and all
How
the
can you
hard
not feel sorry for a guy like that?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, but they had seen a couple of times that we put pictures of his face, and you could just look at him and go, "Wow, they're horrible." He got the pity from what had happened to him, And then he comes and he comes to me and he says, I know what I did to you was horrible, horrible, and will you let me be your partner, basically.
Oh, Fannie Mae Titweiler was a distant memory by this time.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, Fannie Mae was all gone. Yeah, Fannie Mae was all gone, and but I turned him down. I turned him down. I turned him down week after week after week.
Wow.
Every week. He come to TV, begging me. And I turned him down.
About approximately how many weeks do you think you went on?
I
with your
say we
tournament?
worked at least 4 weeks straight after that, in
Wow.
which
Wow.
4 times he saved me a couple of those times when they
Really?
were beating the heck out of me.
And
And
you
I
still turned him
said
down.
no. And I always reminded him, you remember what you did to me. I never forget it.
I mean, this is a
And
2-year angle. I mean,
oh
this
yeah,
Holy cow.
it was actually more than 2
In a
years.
small territory where you're working every week.
Yeah, and and we're actually building toward family deals. It's a family feud. We're building a family feud here. Okay, so I turn him down. Finally, he comes in, and they're doing something horrible to me, and he just really saves me big time. And I slam my fist on the desk and say, "By golly, you're right, Bob. You are the guy I need." And we're going to get them now. We're going to take them belts, and so then so we worked along. We worked more months, and then we got into this new television show. We got to moving our TV into Birmingham. We got Gordon in there, and we get an angle going to where me and Jimmy. Uh, and then I turned heel on Bob.
I was going to say,
Uh,
then you guys reversed role.
Wow.
Then you guys
Yeah,
reversed
first
roles.
time we have a match together, I turned heel on him and I beat the heck out of him, me and the heels. And, and then I go on TV and I say, I know he wants me so bad. I said, but I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to wrestle anymore. I'm going to become a manager. And I'm going to establish the greatest managership of all time. And I put tuxedo on and a top hat, wore a cane. I had so much heat. I had great heels. I had the
Stud
worst among us,
stable.
Arn Anderson, Jerry Stubbs, Jimmy Colin. I had this great group of heels. And then every time I could get to Bob, I would. I'd hit him with my cane. I did all the stuff to him, horrible stuff. And then we are at this point to where we got the new TV going, and I get on there, and he has a Bob goes on TV, and me and Jimmy make an interview, and we say we want to get rid of Bob Armstrong, and we want to get him out of here for good. And at that point, he was wearing a hood because he had lost that loser lead town. That's how he actually came back. He's wearing the hood. So we said, we challenge him to take any partner you want, Bob Armstrong. Pick your partner, give us a cage match, and we will, whoever loses the fall in the cage match will have to, if it's you, Bob Armstrong, you'll have to unmask and you got to leave. We want to get rid of you forever for all these people here. And so when we got to the match, and Rob had never been a heel before. Rob was baby facing. Me and Jimmy are heeling. Rob's baby facing every night. Fans are all into Rob, and Bob comes on TV with Gordon there to make the interview, and he says, "I've got the man, Gordon. I've got the guy. I know they're gonna hate this because this is gonna change everything for us, me and my family." And he says, "Come on, but bring my partner out here." So he brings out Rob. And the building explodes, right? So and me and Jimmy are the heels, we scream and holler, and no, 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 you can't do that. You can't be your partner. And then Rob turns heel, first time in his life.
I
We
just
got
wa- I
Bob
just
in there.
watched that. I just watched
Bob
that
is
this
in the
past
cage
weekend.
with me and Rob and Jimmy, and we're beating the dog crap out of him. His boys are trying to climb over and get into the cage to save him.
Rob
And
puts the Fuller leg lock on Bob.
yeah, oh yeah, puts a Fuller leg lock on him, hurts his leg. I mean, it's just it's just back and forth. What we had then was a family feud that was just main event every night, and people never got tired of it.
Now, by
Amazing stuff.
1985, you've been one of the officers of the National Wrestling Alliance. Were you at the meeting where Vince Jr. came to the meeting with Senior, and Senior told everybody he was selling his company to Vince Jr.? Were you there at that
No,
83 meeting? Well,
no.
by 85, you're heavily involved in the alliance, and you can see that Vince is doing this national expansion. Crockett's starting to get outside their territory. So you see the wrestling paradigm changing here. So you as a promoter have to change your company too, you feel?
Oh yeah. I mean, I felt like I could see it coming. I mean, Vince has got the TV. He's got national TV. He's got the TBS, and so I just I thought that I need to get I needed to get a big building. I needed to produce a program live that had 7,000 people in it, and to create a whole different atmosphere. Change the name of the company to be a national name, named it Continental, and
Did
we
that
changed our
have
set.
anything? Did that have anything to do with you bringing Gordon in because he had been a national
Yeah,
announcer?
yeah. I wanted Gordon. Gordon worked for me. Actually, he worked for us in 1978 a little bit before he took the job in Atlanta down there in Dothan. He worked partners with Charlie Platt for about 3 months on TV.
Wow.
But yeah, I wanted to have Gordon. He's the guy that's got he's got the respect of everybody. Everybody's aware of him. He's big time.
Mm.
And so I bring in Gordon, uh, and wow, it just it took off. I mean, it just and then we had all this stuff. I got my hands on the Adrian Street, and characters
Those
like Adrian, and
we
you
talked
know,
about that building in Birmingham earlier. That's where you shot your television, and you in Birmingham at the Boutwell Auditorium, and you could tell this was not the old studio show anymore. This was big time, right?
oh yeah,
Your show was comparable. I mean, it stood up to the quality of the bigger shows at the time.
yeah, yeah. I felt like we did. I felt like we were right up there with the big time events, and
Because you had big crowds and those crowds were enthusiastic and especially when you would when Gordon would introduce somebody or they would come up to the podium, you had a lot of crowd noise in the background and you could tell it was authentic crowd noise too. I
oh
mean it
yeah,
was
and you
it
get the big shots. Sometimes they get the shots of the upper decks and stuff like that, and you could tell that this was a big deal, and and it didn't have a regional taste. I wanted it to have a national taste. That's why the name Continental. That way people didn't know whether we were all over the whole country or not. So and we it just it took us out to another level. We just kept getting to another level. We were selling out, and like I said, probably should have started running the stadiums.
well then you had a media company in Houston, Texas that comes to you and offers to syndicate your show overseas. How'd that go for you?
Yeah, that went great actually. Yeah, somebody out of Houston got in touch with me and said we see your show and we doing business with people in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and they named off several of those Middle Eastern countries, and so they came. Actually, spent a couple of weeks there, saw the show, and uh,
Joe
and then
Pedicino,
we put us on in Saudi Arabia, got us on in Saudi Arabia and Qatar.
Joe
Yeah,
Pedicino starts running your show in Atlanta
yeah,
as part of the wrestling block there on Saturday night. And
yeah.
so
And
then we
it was like
start,
a bigger show. When you watched that whole block, when you got to our show, you could tell the difference between our show and those other shows. I
right.
think that made us look better, than we would have.
And then you start thinking, well, maybe I could go back to Knoxville.
Yeah, yeah. I always wanted to. That was the whole deal. I felt horrible when I had to leave Knoxville because it was my baby. It was my first territory, and having to leave it, especially having to leave it in the way I did, that really affected me. And
About
I
how
really
long?
knew, I had a feeling that the fans haven't forgotten us, that the fans are Knoxville. They had no wrestling at all. They had no television. They had no wrestling matches, no live events for about a year and a half, from about 1983, middle of 83 up to 85. And so soon as we made our first show, I called my friend that had done business with in Knoxville before, and I said, I got a TV show I want to bring up there and show to the people. So went to a different channel than the one I'd had before, but it was just as strong a signal.
So,
And
so about how long did you have your show on in Knoxville before you went back to the Coliseum?
I left it on in Knoxville for about 4 months, and had 4 months worth of shows. And then I advertised. We started a month ahead of the actual live event, calling it the Tennessee Homecoming, because it was me and Rob and Jimmy and Bob and Tony Charles, and it was like half the card was the same guys that had blew it up and
I mean, that had to
made
be
it
a
really
that had to
huge.
be a really great feeling. I mean, you had to leave in '79 after
Oh,
all
and
that
one
that
of the greatest
happened.
things that it was unbelievable that first night back. Everybody said it ain't gonna work. Nobody's done. Everybody's died here. You won't draw flies. You won't have a half a house. And I remember coming pulling that big old curtain back, and wow, it was just like it. I got goosebumps, man. It's like wow, this is just like coming home. And that's what we called the event, the Tennessee Homecoming.
That's
Well, and
awesome.
that's what we did in the interviews. We're coming home.
So you got all this going, and then in '86, Vince and the WWF, they decide Birmingham would be a good town for them to run.
Yeah, yeah. And I knew they were coming. Sooner or later, I knew they were coming. And so when they announced it, and they to make it even worse, Boutwell sit on one side of the freeway, and directly across from Boutwell on the other side of the freeway was the 17,000 seat building, the big building, the convention center, I think they called it. So they came and booked the convention center on a Monday night. They knew it was our TV night. They knew it was Monday night. They expected they're going to take all of our audience and they're going to have a big live event over there. And so we sat down, me and Rob and Bob, and we talked and we said, what are we going to do, basically? And we said, well, one of the most spectacular events we used to have was once a year we'd have a two-ring battle royal. And so we talked and we'd raise the prices by $1. So I said, let's have a two-ring battle royal, bring in all these other guys, big names. And then on the two-ring battle royal, instead of raising the prices $1, let's drop the price $1. And so when we went on that Monday night, boy, we went out there and looked, and we were full. Gosh, we turned away people, lots of people, and then all of a sudden on the back door to Boutwell, you could walk from that building across the street where they were. You could walk underneath the freeway and come in the back door of Boutwell. They had on the card. They had Hulk on the card. They had Wayne.
Ferris.
Yeah, Ferris. They had Ferris on the card, Honky Tonk Man. And so here they came, middle of the night. Honky Tonk was first guy in, and he came in the back door, and I said, "Hey, how you doing, man? What's going on? How are y'all doing over there?" And he says, "Gosh, Ron," he goes, "it's horrible." He goes, "I don't think we got 1,000 people in that building, and 18,000 seats, so it had to be horrible." And he said, "What do y'all got?" And I said, "Well, we'll go out there, on the stage and take a look." And he did. And he was like, "What the hell?" He goes, "We're going everywhere. We're just got people are just dying. They're drawing anybody." And he said, and we got, I've never seen such a small crowd across the street here. And you got to sell out. What the heck? And about 15 minutes later, here came Terry. Here came Hulk. Same deal. Walked out on the stage and went, "Oh my God, what the hell are y'all doing here? How did you do this?" And I said, "Well, I guess if y'all are coming, man, we gotta work. We're gonna work to fight. We're gonna see what we can do. We're gonna hang in here." And so we had a huge night. They never came back. They never ever came back.
Yeah.
Never came back to Birmingham. Never came to Knoxville. It was like that was it. That was all they needed.
Vince's strategy was always to do the edges, to do the do the upper Midwest, do California, and kind of, reluctantly go into Texas, Louisiana, Alabama. Those southern towns were the last ones that they finally, went into. But you guys had you had the loyal fan base. They stuck with what they knew and knew you guys. That's pretty much what I got, guys. You all got any questions for Ron?
I'm just like, Ron, when did you see the light? When did you think it was time to hang it up and go pursue your other desires in hockey?
We ran on in '86 Continental. We ran Continental through '86. We had some huge crowds. Had some figures, man. We did 1.8 million people between 1985 and summer 1985 to the summer of '86. We sold 1.8 million tickets.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
So we were going all the way from the Gulf Coast to almost Ohio. And we ran wherever we went, we were just kicking butt. We were really, really doing good. But I was blown up, man. I was burned out. It's pretty. I'm sure you didn't know this, Gerald, but I ran all of my companies off of my dining room table. I never had a wrestling office. I never hired an employee to work in my offices or with me. I ran it all by myself, right off my dining room tables, all those years, every company. And by 1987, I was pretty burnt out, man. I had, I had done all those years, and so I just I wanted to sell. I talked to the guys, and I said, I want to sell. And they said, well, if you're selling, we're selling. They didn't want me to go, and and so.
And we should also mention that Robert and Jimmy kept working in the business, and they got jobs in Atlanta with WCW. And
they went on for a long time. I quit, and I thought that was it for me. I thought that I was done with sports. I thought this was retirement for good, and but there was another sport in my history. I just didn't know.
But before we jump there, was you ever approached, by any of Vince's people about selling to him, your territory to him, or was
to who?
About Vince?
No, he never approached me. No, he never contacted me. I never talked to Vince Jr. ever in my life. Never had a conversation with Vince Jr. With his dad. I worked for his dad some.
I also wanted to go ahead, Jerry.
No, I was just going to wrap up this part of it, but I can do that after your question. So.
Oh, I was just going to say, I want to mention too that you told me you wanted your son to have one match to keep the generation going, to keep the wrestling tradition going.
Yeah,
and then Jimmy's son had some matches too, right?
Jimmy's son too. Rob and Jimmy, they stayed in it a long time. They worked some for Jarrett and over in Texas. Then they worked for Cornette with Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Then they both worked for WCW. Jimmy worked as Bunkhouse Buck, did that angle with Slater.
Robert did
managed everybody. Rob managed everybody from Austin. Robert
did that.
And then they went to WWE. They even worked WWE.
Jarrett did that great dance.
I was out of it. I watched it on TV every week. I was like, hey, I want to see what my brother's doing, what my cousin's doing.
I had a great time with your brother in WWE. What a great guy. I love your brother.
Yeah, he's a goof. He's fun, man.
Jarrett did that great angle toward the end of the 80s, first part of the 90s, whatever, where Robert Fuller and Jimmy and Nick Goulas, they did an angle where they claimed that Jarrett stole the company from Nick Goulas, and they had Nick on there with them doing the angle. And Jerry said, yeah, Robert was working that angle and Nick was shooting. But that was a great angle that they did there. But tell real quick about your son and about Jimmy's son.
Well, yeah, my son worked a little deal in Birmingham. I went and worked. Birmingham just continued to run.
Did he
And
work as
then,
a Fuller or Welch, or what did he work on?
yeah, yeah, my son,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, he's a Welch. Yes, yeah, his name is
I bet
Chad.
his working name, what
Yeah, yeah. Well, he didn't even get an introduction to his match. Because he's sitting up in the stands, but he had worked out. Him and Rob had been working out with Rob's wife's one of her sons, and out of Canada, and so he had been working out, and I knew he had been. I go work for a lady that started running Birmingham. She was uh, her dad was a famous guy in Birmingham, been there for many many years. And so she started running wrestling matches, and she booked me there. She had me as a partner with Bob and I think it was Brad, and we were working against Robert and Jimmy, who were heels. They brought them back as heels, and I can't remember who their partner was at this point. But uh, my son's sitting up there in the stands, and so I go down to the ring for the match, and Bob and Brad, they're all up jumping around, ready to go, and I got my arm in a sling. I've hurt my arm. And that's my brother and my cousin across the ring from me there, right? And I got my arm in a sling, and I get on the microphone and say, ladies and gentlemen, I've been looking forward to this. And I was back there warming up, and gee, I hurt myself. But I do have somebody that can take my place, and my son don't know about this at all. He don't know what I'm going to do. And I say, and he's sitting right up there. And I said, Chad, come on down here, boy. So he jumps out of the balcony there and comes down to the ring. And then we have the match. I've got the arm and sling. I'm standing in their corner. And then I turn on him. Then me
you
and my
turned
son
off?
turn on them. It's Rob and Jimmy. And we turn on Bob and Brad. And we end up
Wow.
at the end of the match. It's like days gone by, right?
Wow.
Deja vu, I guess that's what they call it. I'm back again. So he
Wow.
has his only match, and then Jimmy's son worked a whole lot of matches in East Tennessee.
Yeah.
So, but
Cool.
I don't think he works anymore either.
No, I don't think
So when you hang it up, what do you do? Do you sell, or do you just step away and let the company
No,
decide?
I sold out in 1987. In the fall of '87, I sold out. We sold out to the TV station owner in Montgomery, Alabama, who we'd been on that channel for many, many years. He'd always been interested in the wrestling business. And so we sold out. I actually went home and I ran for 6 months. 2 months later, I started another company called USA. Gordon Soley was doing the commentary for that one. And it was just a Knoxville operation out of Knoxville. Ran it for about 6 months, and I sold it to the guy in Montgomery. So, and then I said, "This is it. I'm done." And
Wow.
like I said later on,
And a new career pops up.
yeah, yeah,
And you introduced hockey to the South.
yeah, yeah. They already had a few hockey teams, but they never had one like mine, man. They never had one that had those big intros. I changed that game for them.
Yes, you did. We talked about that a lot when you were on our show. It's an unbelievable story. It's a terrific story. Hey, Ron, I got a question for you about Roy. Roy, for some reason, doesn't get the credit I feel like he deserves. Was this because a lot of times back when you had the commission, which you got rid of, thank God you did, because I hate the commission as much as you do, that they had to have a split between the promoter and a wrestler. You couldn't be both. So Roy was always using not necessarily front men, but he was using people that were in positions, and he would back away into the shadows. So when Nick Goulas was out there, he would back away and he just let Nick Goulas, run things, and people just assume it was Nick. Do you think that was the reason that Roy doesn't get some of the press these days, or the credibility or prestige that he probably should get, because he used so many people out there and he stepped back in the shadows?
Yes, he kind of wanted to stay in the shadows, and My dad was kind of like that even. I don't know why he had that. My dad always had a saying. He said, "Never shine too bright a light." And then because and I think he got some of that from Roy. Roy didn't want to be really known for all this, and Dad, and then I found out shining too bright a light was a bad deal, and so yeah, I think yeah, but that's probably the case. I mean, the way things were set up, it was the only way he could do it.
Right. And because
being
of that,
promoter
people
and wrestler too.
right. And because of that,
Oh,
people
no.
just assumed that other people were the guys that were running things, and Roy was really the puppet master behind the scenes,
There you go.
running everything.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this been fun. We had two future Hall of Famers. Tony, 2026 Melby Award winner at July the 6th through the 8th will be accepting the award, and we're having honor of the Welch Fuller dynasty. And after these last 9-10 shows, you can see why we're honoring the Welch dynasty like it is. And Ron's graciously going to be there to accept the award for the Fuller Welch family there. So we're honored, John, to have these two men.
Absolutely. And by the way, Scott Armstrong, obviously Bullet Bob's kid, is still down in Pensacola right now. So if you ever want to renew that rivalry, we can still go back down there.
I talked to him a lot.
Isn't he a good guy?
I'm in contact with Scott. Yeah.
Yeah, what a good guy. I love Scott. I've always enjoyed being around Scott. Mr. Brisco tortured him when he was a referee, and Mr. Brisco was in his ear at WWE. Hey, Ron,
I couldn't torture his old man, so I tortured him.
That's right. Hey, Ron, but before we go, please, the Studcast and things that you're doing, promote that stuff that you're doing, please.
Oh yeah. And I got a little list here, man, of some of the things that just a little bit of the stuff. I still do a few things with wrestling. I got my website, TennesseeStud.com. Got 400 1-hour Studcast on there, 44 3-hour Super Studcast on there. I got the Brutus book, which I want to show it again.
Please.
It's not, and I don't know if y'all can see it. It needs to go higher or lower.
Oh, we can see it.
Okay. And it doesn't have anything to do with wrestling, but it's a pretty good book. I'm getting some really good sales from it, and so that's the only place you can get it. It's on the website. You go to the website and just click on Brutus, and it's just $25. And I'll personally autograph it to you. So you tell me what your name is, and I'll autograph it to you. And I got a YouTube channel. It's got a lot of stuff on it too. It has 187 Studcast on it itself on there, and obviously it's the only place you can see some Southeastern TV actual matches. You can't see them on my website, but you can see them on my YouTube site, which is called Southeastern Rewind. And I have a little few things going still hanging in here with the wrestling some, and I just really enjoy you. Thank you guys very much for the opportunity. Thank you all for what you're doing for my family, and I really, really appreciate it. And I look forward to July.
Yes, sir.
All right. Tony, kind of fill us in where people can get your.
Hey, Mr. Brisco, it's not Tony. It's Hall of Famer Tony.
Oh, Mr. Hall of Famer, Mr. HOFer.
Well, my Substack channel is the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel. I write a daily wrestling history newsletter called the Daily Chronicle.
Which, by the way, Tony, I'm Hall of Famer Tony. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm a new subscriber, and I love the damn thing. It is so fun.
I told you would, man.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, tomorrow will be the 40th anniversary of the death of Eddie Graham, and in my Daily Chronicle, I'll have an overview of the life and career of Eddie Graham. We just did the life and career of Bobo Brazil. I put pretty much some kind of biography in every newsletter. And then also I have a Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel podcast. We're reviewing the year 1985. Mr. Fuller is going to come on with me. We're going to go through the continental year of 1985 together on my show. And that's the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel.
Right.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. We appreciate it because July is going to be fun, but I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun between now and then. And that, you have it, folks, 10 episodes of the incredible Welch Dynasty.